Artificial intelligence is everywhere today. We use it on our phones, in our apps, in search engines, and in tools like ChatGPT. But most people don't actually understand how it works. In this video, I will explain how ChatGPT really works in a simple and clear way, without technical jargon and without hype. By the end of this video, you will understand what ChatGPT does, how it generates answers, and what its real limitations are. ChatGPT is a type of artificial intelligence that is designed to work with language. Its main purpose is to understand text and generate text that sounds natural to humans. ChatGPT does not have thoughts or opinions. It does not know things the way people do. Instead, it is a computer system that has been trained to recognize patterns in language. When people talk to ChatGPT, it may feel like a conversation, but in reality, ChatGPT is not having a conversation in the human sense. It is responding based on patterns it has learned from large amounts of written text. This means ChatGPT is very good at producing language, but it does not actually understand meaning, intention, or truth. Understanding this difference is important because it helps explain both what ChatGPT is good at and where its limitations come from. To understand how ChatGPT works, we need to understand how it learns language. ChatGPT does not learn by listening to people talk. It learns by reading large amounts of written text. This text includes books, articles, websites, and many other written sources. During training, ChatGPT looks at sentences and tries to understand how words are connected. It learns which words usually appear together and which words tend to follow others. For example, if a sentence starts in a certain way, there are only a few words that are likely to come next. By seeing millions of examples like this, ChatGPT slowly learns the structure of language. It does not memorize sentences word for word. Instead, it learns patterns that describe how language usually works. This is why ChatGPT can write sentences it has never seen before, while still sounding natural and human-like. Understanding this learning process is important because it explains both the strengths and the limitations of ChatGPT. When people hear that ChatGPT was trained on large amounts of text, they often misunderstand what that actually means. Training data does not mean that ChatGPT has access to specific books, websites, or private information. ChatGPT does not remember individual documents. It does not store articles or copy content from specific sources. Instead, training data is used to teach the system how language works in general. During training, ChatGPT looks at many examples of text and learns patterns that describe how language is structured. It learns things like grammar, sentence flow, and how ideas are usually expressed. Once training is finished, the original texts are no longer accessible to the system. ChatGPT cannot look up where a sentence came from, and it cannot retrieve specific documents. This is important to understand because it explains why ChatGPT can generate new text, but cannot verify where information originally came from. Training data teaches ChatGPT how to use language, not what to believe or what is true. Now we can explain the most important part of how ChatGPT works. When you type a question into ChatGPT, the system does not search for an answer. Instead, it looks at your text and predicts what the next word should be. This prediction is based on probability. ChatGPT has learned which words are likely to follow other words based on patterns it saw during training. For every word it generates, there are many possible options. ChatGPT calculates which option is most likely to make sense in context and then selects one of those options. This happens one word at a time. After generating one word, ChatGPT repeats the same process for the next word and then the next. By doing this very quickly, it can generate full sentences and long responses. This is why ChatGPT can sound intelligent and confident, even though it is not thinking or reasoning like a human. It is predicting language, not understanding meaning. To understand ChatGPT even better, we need to understand something called tokens. ChatGPT does not read text the way humans do, as full sentences or complete ideas. Instead, it breaks text down into smaller pieces, called tokens. A token can be a full word, part of a word, or even punctuation. For example, a long word might be split into 2 or 3 tokens. ChatGPT processes text one token at a time. This means that when you write a message, ChatGPT first converts your text into tokens and then works with those tokens internally. The same thing happens when ChatGPT generates a response. It does not think in sentences. It predicts and produces one token at a time, based on probability. Understanding tokens helps explain why wording matters when you talk to ChatGPT, and why small changes in a sentence can sometimes lead to very different answers. Another important part of how ChatGPT works is something called context. Context means the information ChatGPT remembers from earlier parts of a conversation. When you ask several questions in a row, ChatGPT does not treat each message as completely separate. It looks at what was said before and uses that information to understand your current question. This is why you can ask follow-up questions and get answers that feel connected. However, ChatGPT's memory is limited. It can only keep track of a certain amount of text at one time. This is called the context window. When the conversation becomes too long, older parts may be forgotten. This is important to understand because it explains why ChatGPT sometimes seems consistent and other times suddenly loses track of earlier details. ChatGPT is not remembering things like a human would. It is simply working with the most recent information that fits inside its context window. Behind ChatGPT is a structure called a neural network. A neural network is a system inspired by the human brain, but it does not work the same way a real brain does. It is made up of many layers that process information step by step. Each layer looks at the input in a different way. Early layers focus on simple patterns, such as basic word relationships. As the information moves through the network, later layers combine those simple patterns into more complex ideas. This layered structure allows ChatGPT to understand grammar, context, and relationships between words. Neural networks do not contain knowledge in the human sense. They are mathematical systems that transform input into output. Understanding neural networks helps explain why ChatGPT can handle complex language while still being limited to pattern-based processing. ChatGPT does not improve on its own. It learns with the help of human feedback. During training, human reviewers look at example responses and evaluate whether they are helpful, clear, and safe. When ChatGPT gives a good response, that type of response is encouraged. When it gives a poor or harmful response, that type of response is discouraged. This training process is called reinforcement learning from human feedback. In simple terms, humans help guide the system toward better behavior. This does not mean ChatGPT understands right or wrong. It simply learns which kinds of answers are more likely to be accepted. Human feedback helps shape how ChatGPT responds, but it does not give it opinions, beliefs, or personal values. This is why ChatGPT can sound polite and helpful, while still remaining a tool that follows patterns rather than intentions. Even though ChatGPT can sound confident and intelligent, it can still get things wrong. This happens because ChatGPT does not know facts in the way humans do. It does not check information against reality. It only predicts what kind of answer is likely to sound correct. Because of this, ChatGPT can sometimes generate information that sounds convincing but is inaccurate or incomplete. ChatGPT can also struggle with complex reasoning, especially when problems require long chains of logic. Another limitation is that ChatGPT depends heavily on how a question is asked. Small changes in wording can sometimes lead to very different answers. Understanding these limitations is important because it helps users treat ChatGPT as a helpful assistant, not as an authority or source of truth. Another important limitation of ChatGPT is something called bias. Bias means that a system can reflect certain viewpoints more than others. ChatGPT does not create bias on its own. Instead, it can reflect patterns that exist in the data it was trained on. Because ChatGPT learned from large amounts of human-written text, it may sometimes reflect human opinions, assumptions, or imbalances found in that data. This does not mean ChatGPT has beliefs or intentions. It simply follows patterns it has learned. Developers try to reduce bias by carefully selecting training data and using human feedback during training. Even so, bias cannot be completely removed. Understanding this helps users interpret responses more carefully, especially on sensitive or complex topics. It reminds us that ChatGPT is a tool shaped by human input, not an independent or neutral source of truth. Understanding how ChatGPT works helps us understand how it should be used. ChatGPT is best used as a tool to assist humans, not to replace human judgment. It can help explain ideas, summarize information, and support learning. But it should not be treated as an authority or final source of truth. When accuracy matters, information should always be checked using reliable sources. ChatGPT is powerful because it can work quickly and handle large amounts of language, but it remains limited by its design. By understanding both its strengths and its limitations, we can use ChatGPT more effectively and responsibly. Artificial intelligence will continue to develop, and learning how it works is becoming increasingly important for everyone.